is not the case.
It does not seem to be the case.
So
And I just want to point out that, when Dave King was hired to move these moorings, and Jerry's wasn't the only mooring that was moved, the town never paid for it. And I just want to point that out because I don't understand how the harbor master is making decisions to move things based on his position, and then the town isn't being charged for it. So I think
there's a couple questions there.
there are other issues that I think we need to discuss,
I agree.
But in the
and
meantime,
this kind of highlights that.
in the meantime, how does Jared move his?
Well, I think the onus is on the town. If you feel that someone needs to be hired to rectify this, then I think it's on us.
I think, I move that we hire Dave King or whoever we deem appropriate to come in, raise his mooring, check it, and put the appropriate length of chain on
Well, I
it
think
in
the
the
chain,
new location.
well, the chain is already there, like, it
But
just
is
has.
it enough?
I don't know.
That's my
Yeah.
point. So if we need to raise the mooring to check the depth on it, to check the chain, to make sure it's sufficient, so he can actually access it. Because if there's not enough chain where it's at right now,
Right,
it's still not functioning. So
I agree with what you're saying, except I have an issue with, I don't think we should be hiring Dave King for anything until we figure. I think there's some other issues with it that we need to.
There are other issues, but Jerry needs to be.
Jerry, he needs to be-
He needs to be able to use his
Jerry
mooring.
may know somebody.
well, I called Dave, like, either way, like, I can't do it, so I called, like, Dave's like the only guy that I know.
what about Herb?
Herb, I don't think Herb, but like Herb kind of retired, you know what I'm saying, so now it's Dave
Oh,
Charlie.
he retired partly.
But, so, yeah, so like, I mean, that, so like.
So
that's
as I said, whoever it
Yeah.
happens to be, I think we need to inspect the mooring as it is.
Yeah.
We need to make sure that where it's positioned, if you're comfortable, that's what I mean, are
Yeah,
you
I don't think,
comfortable where it's
yeah,
at?
yeah,
So we need to confirm that the chain length is appropriate where it's at, or we're gonna have to add chain to it, change the chain.
so last time, like in the letter I got from the select board, it was said that the town moved the mooring, and, you know, it was paid for by the town. And so,
Yeah, and that wasn't the case. We never received a bill.
so, that, I mean, probably if I would've never complained, like, I'm guessing some, like, if I would've never complained, then the town would've paid the bill, you know?
We were never presented a bill.
Perhaps. I'm not
The
sure.
town wouldn't have known that the mooring was moved at all, had you not complained.
I don't know. Because, I think you would've seen the bill if I would've complained, that's my opinion. You would've eventually seen the bill. Who's paying for it? You know what I'm saying?
But we didn't request it, the towns wouldn't pay for it unless we requested it.
According to David King, the town hired him to move my mooring.
The
I called him
harbor
right up,
master.
because I called him right up after.
And the harbor master.
And I believe the harbor master paid for it. I believe that's what he told me.
Does the harbor master have the authority to move it?
Yes.
For
According
what
to-
reason?
Yes, and it said right
According
there.
to our ordinance, he does.
He has,
Any-
he has.
any reason?
No, and if you read the ordinance, I have it with me, he has the right to move it if there's a navigational hazard, or if somebody wants to come in and have a mooring. And that wasn't the case. What it amounts to is Joe's buddy got a bigger boat, and so he was in between us, so that's why I had to get moved. And when I
His reason
swapped,
was the navigation reason. That's the reason that Joe gave.
Which is all right.
Is that accurate though? That's the problem.
Well, I would have no way of knowing that.
Yeah.
And that's a discussion right here, what do you
And
think?
that's not under discussion, because Jerry says he's okay with where the mooring is located, he just needs to be able to time his boat.
But we don't know if there's the appropriate amount of chain is the problem. We actually have to raise the mooring.
Well, Jerry will find out and let us know.
yeah, and but it's just like salt in the wound, like Joe moved my stuff for no reason.
And
Under the town, like he's a town employee, he moved it, the town of West Bath moved my mooring, not Joe.
Right.
And then I can't use it, so it's just like salt in the wound, but you can't physically go use your own stuff, because for some reason Joe moved everything out there that I can't figure out, besides the fact that he's helping us buddy. It just irritates me.
So do we want Jerry to hire someone to fix it, or do we want to hire someone?
I think in order, if the town is going to pay whatever invoice, I think the town needs to initiate it, and I can certainly initiate it, and then put him in touch with Jerry. So Jerry could let him know what he needs.
Well, and just, the expectations that he needs to be prepared to put new chain on if necessary.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't, you gotta,
It says right in the ordinance, like, once your mooring is there, it can stay there, like it says right there, and then unless it's a navigational hazard, but, like, the fact that he's making, like, there's no navigational hazard because of my mooring, you know, it's just a bunch of crap. I don't think so.
Is there a second?
Did we have a motion?
So Suzanne moved that a professional be hired to raise the mooring to add sufficient chain at the current location.
I'm fine with it, I don't care.
So I just think we need to add to that Christine.
Right,
We'll hire,
yes.
Christine will hire a professional to evaluate the mooring placement and bring it back to a usable state.
My final question here is, like, Joe moves all these.
But we have, we have a
Okay, go
motion.
ahead, go ahead.
So Matt, would you second this amendment?
I will second
All in favor? So
Okay.
My
now you can-
last question is, like, my boat was fine for a couple of years where it was. Joe decided, for whatever reason, to move my mooring, right? So now we're gonna fix it and get it all set up. Now what happens when my boat crashes into the neighbor's boat because Joe moved my mooring? What, is the town responsible for that? Like, my boat was fine for two or 3 years where it was before, but now it's been moved, my mooring's been moved. And if I hit one of these other boats now, who's liable? I would think the town would be liable because they moved my boat
that.
closer to the neighbor's boat.
So where it's placed now, is it a hazard? Are you at risk of hitting another vehicle, a vessel?
You really can't tell until you put the boat on, you know, like, I don't know. I really, I don't know. But like, Joe is the expert, and he's the one that moved my mooring to that location, so he must know. And like, the town of West Bath moved my mooring to that location, so, like, what am I supposed to do? I go put my boat on there, it swings and hits the neighbor's boat, why is that? Why? I don't understand, you know, I just, very interesting, like, when the harbor master starts moving stuff, I don't know.
Well, and all moorings are approved, so does that make the harbor master liable? I mean, obviously, that's a different case where it got moved after the fact, but where moorings are approved by the harbor master, is he liable if?
I think the town probably is, but I'm not sure.
Well, listen, that's what I think we talked about this last time. We should be on, because the mooring application could have more information on it. I think we need to, once a mooring is placed, it should have the GPS location added to the application so that there's no question
Right.
as to where that mooring is supposed to be housed. Other towns do it that way, and we should be doing that on the application.
That
So
is
that-
on the application, it's just not always completed.
So that, and it's up to you to tell us what that
If
is.
it's on the application and it's not completed, it's an incomplete application, plain and simple.
Is it on the, is there a question for that on the application? Was it on your initial application?
Yeah, it was.
I don't think there's anything that says that it won't be disapproved without.
Yeah, but it should be. Then.
Maybe it should be, but
We should
that
accept it.
hasn't been what's been happening.
There should be a caveat under that,
And
that
it should be approved.
it should be approved until the GPS location is, because if Jerry's application has his GPS location.
Right.
But there again,
And then who determines it?
this is an ordinance, so it can't be done here, it's gotta go through the process, it's an ordinance.
Exactly. See, this is,
The application itself is in the ordinance.
this is
That's what I
why we
mean.
need to
Interestingly
review
enough.
our ordinances.
Right, but we don't say anywhere in the ordinance that it needs to be a complete application.
So it's gotta go through the process.
It's just very interesting, I don't know, I think it opens the town for huge liability when your harbor master starts moving stuff around. And I was told, like, that it was done by the towns, you know, flip the bill, you know, paid for this all. So like, when they start moving stuff, like, I think the town becomes liable, but before that, the town had, you know, just gave a location of where to put it, right? And then when the town starts moving stuff and adjusting stuff, you know, I mean, I think that's kind of crazy.
I think we need to look at that process, on how we have an additional mooring over in the basin, and we have to put where we want it, and then their harbor master approves it.
And that's what I did. Like,
No, no, that's not, but
Yeah.
but that's where, I mean, we need to, you don't just drop it, you have to have it approved at a location, and then that should be set.
And that's what I did, like, I went through that whole process, and I moved the test buoy multiple times to make Joe happy, and then my boat sat on it for a year or two, and then all of a sudden one day it gets moved, you know, and it's like, it's kind of confusing.
More work to do.
Yes. So,
The immediate
Christine will take care of that for you.
And if they could just notify me, Christina, I'd try to be aware.
Does she have your cell phone?
They do.
Okay.
So,
Are
thank
you
you.
comfortable with how this transpired?
Yep,
Okay.
good, thank you.
Do you have public comment, or are you just here for
Public
fun?
comments.
Just here to
You
watch
should
that.
have a bowl of popcorn, this is entertaining.
Remind me, next meeting, I'll bring you all home. Okay, business item, number 1, bid opening, Crooked Spruce Drive property, bid notice.
How many bids did we have?
One.
I know who got it.
Okay,
Good for her,
This-
she wanted it.
envelope is sealed.
No, it's not.
Not anymore. And the note, I, Kathy Rogers, is submitting a bid on lot U 220000001A, which the town has in foreclosure. My bid is $707.31. Enclosed is a cashier's check of 10%, $70.73, and it is signed by the bidder. So there we go.
Fabulous number.
And this is the person who came to us,
She is.
and this is, and she is, her lot is contiguous.
It's
and her
adjacent to
original
it, yep.
lot is contiguous.
Yes.
And so she will attach this lot to her lot.
Well, if you accept the bid, I will ask Ron about that,
Okay.
about combining the lots.
You have
It would
to.
be appropriate.
You actually have to.
Yeah, I'll just,
We had,
I'll
you
make
have
sure,
land and a house, and land has to
Yeah.
attach to the house.
I'll make
So
sure
it's-
that.
Okay.
I think only if it's non-conforming. So like if you had 2 conforming lots, I don't think you would have. So that's only probably maybe 1 conforming lot.
This, I think
This
it's
is definitely
definitely
non-conforming. It's only like a 10-foot by 10-foot piece of land.
So that was definitely non-conforming, but Kathy's like original lot may be a conforming lot,
It is a conforming lot.
so I don't think you have to.
But this isn't.
Right.
So I move that we accept the bid of $707.31 for the foregone lot.
I second.
What are the back taxes? Just curious.
$67, I think.
So that more than covers that apparently.
Yes.
Yes.
Well, that's several years of taxes and.
It was
costs.
$35 a year,
Yeah.
and then interest for 2 years. And
So it's, so
To the neighbor.
the bid covers the cost to the town. And it removes a non-conforming lot. It's a win. Did the motion have a second?
I did, but we did not vote.
But call vote, Kathy.
All in favor?
Who gets the money?
I'll take it.
All right.
Does everyone sign the?
Do you want the
You
envelope?
can pass that on down.
I haven't yet.
Came in at 2:05 this afternoon.
Oh, boy, can we skip the next one? Comprehensive plan update.
Okay. I contacted the state. It's actually the Department of Agriculture, Conservation and Forestry that reviews comprehensive plans now, since the state planning office is closed. The statute requires specific public participation. It has specific requirements for that. We're also required to actually establish, and the board needs to appoint members to a comprehensive plan committee before we can submit.
How many members do we have to have?
We're not required to have any specific number of members.
Does that mean we
One
have?
thing that he offered, he said if we're unable to get enough people to participate, that the planning board could be appointed as the comprehensive plan committee. That's one option to make sure that the formality of appointing a board is done. which is a prerequisite. to
Do we have anybody interested in doing it at this time?
He's sitting right there.
There he is.
I'm interested in contributing.
Yes, and
So
there
he-
there are people who will contribute. I don't wanna make it sound like that people won't contribute, but people do not want to be appointed. The planning board is gonna need to take a look at the land use sections anyway, regardless of whether or not they're appointed to a committee. So it's just something to consider.
And how does the planning board feel about being?
Well, that's, we haven't discussed it with them yet.
What's your thought on it?
I think it could be a ton of work, extra work for the planning board.
That's-
It's not necessarily that the planning board would need to do the work, but I really believe that you're gonna end up reviewing sections of it anyway. So you
Review is
won't,
different than writing.
yes.
Right.
So,
Yeah, you won't actually have to write, especially if the board decides to hire a consultant to compile the information. The planning board wouldn't actually be writing it. You would be talking about it and you would be
You're reading the
reviewing sections.
so is that, by hiring a consultant, does that bridge the gap to appointing or designating the planning board?
You still need to have a committee.
You still need to have a
of some
committee.
sort, even if it's an advisory role that they
Are
take
you
on.
comfortable being like an advisor to the,
So let me just say, I've already spoken to Christine about this, that I served on, I was appointed to the original comprehensive plan committee that was going to write it. And we were spinning our wheels, trying to deal with that enormous book of history and facts and stuff that you could, it was so big and so complex, you couldn't tell if over here there was a conflict with something that was over here. And we were struggling with it even before COVID. And I think Christine was watching this unfold, and I know Carly was, and they put their heads together and said, wait a minute, this isn't going in a constructive way. And we need to, and the thought was the staff might start with a draft of a simpler plan. I like hearing somebody talking about hiring somebody to do some of that and compile. There's a lot of information in the existing one that is tables and charts of historical nature. And I don't know how much of that needs to be in it. I was interested in it because a big part of it was natural resources. Well, I have a background in land resources, like forestry is my specialty, and forest management, which West Bath has a lot of. I thought I could contribute. And then somebody pointed out in that natural resource component is also marine resources. And I'm an ignorant fool on marine resources, so I was struggling to, okay, maybe I can learn about that. I spent some time with David asking questions and stuff, and it all got stopped. What I said to Christine, I'd be happy to read through the thing, I'd happy to edit stuff, I'd have to be happy to even write a few pieces of it if it was important. I want to see it done and done well, and I'm willing to give some time. I don't think I'm in a position to chair it or to, be responsible for writing a big chunk of it. So that's what I'd like to be. I'd like to see it happen. I know we need it as a town.
so the
My
original,
thought on that is, what is your interpretation of McEd going to do for us on the comp plan? What do you envision being?
Right. With the comp plan, it would be similar to what they would do with the land use ordinance. They would attend meetings, they would facilitate or guide the discussion to make sure that we're hitting on the points that we need to hit on. They would compile the information. So when, instead of the town putting the document together, they would be responsible for actually compiling the document.
Have they seen that document yet?
No, we haven't hired them.
Okay, so would they go through this proposed new comp plan and delete, erase what is not needed anymore?
The
I
fluff.
think we would be doing that.
I mean, no, well, with that guidance, because I
Yes.
assume whoever you
Yes.
hire is gonna know what the state requires,
Mhm.
and
Right.
keep it simple.
Right, right,
Keep
and
it-
that's the approach that everybody I've talked to so far has wanted to take that approach of
I
simplifying.
think it's important for us to create a less challenging standard that we can edit over the next 10 years. We fix it now and take out the fluff,
Right,
and then that gives us a better foundation for another 10 years down the road where we don't have stuff in it that's not appropriate.
and some of it just isn't at all applicable anymore, like the Naval Air Station, which is no longer there. It's-
So I think it's good for us to standardize it, so that it's what's there, only what's there that's necessary for the state.
I'm concerned, and I've heard, I don't know if you call it resistance or just concern for the planning board, how much additional time are we gonna be expecting for them that they may not be able to give?
Well,
I think if you can't get together a committee, right, then you're probably.
That's the issue, is we need to have a committee.
So like, I think West
The
Bath's having a hard.
committee has to be appointed.
So who are the people that were interested in addition?
Was it Juanita?
Me.
Juanita said
Juanita.
she would do it.
Juanita said she would only do it if.
She would only do it if there was an actual active committee.
So we have to have a committee by law.
So we have to have a
Right.
committee. If we made the official appointment to the planning board, you could have a subcommittee that didn't have to be members of the planning board, that could work on specific parts.
And I trust that we'll be able to get people, you know, like Bob has said, who are experts in different fields, that would be happy to review and discuss separate sections, like the West Bath Historical Society, they could certainly contribute. Maybe somebody who's interested in cemeteries or technology or climate change or whatever the area might be.
We definitely need to include some of the
And
climate change
people will
concerns.
contribute, but I really want to stress the point that people aren't wanting to be appointed to committees.
And they don't, and people don't want to be mired down in an impossible task. So if we have the official committee and then people who are working with, under the supervision, however loosely that could be defined, then we are covered by the law and we have active participation.
I think we have to be careful, because if what happens is we get this going, and people feel overwhelmed,
Well,
and they all drop out.
that's where you need to hire somebody to do this.
That's where the consultant comes in. The consultant
Because
should
I
be
see
able to
that
keep
happening.
us.
I think we should start with the consultant to clean up the document
What?
and simplify it prior to handing it off to any committees, because we don't want them wasting their time.
No,
If the consultant could figure out what the state requirements are,
Then we go to.
and go through that,
And then
Yeah.
narrow down
Exhaustive
It's
it.
a
book.
long list,
and just
yeah.
get rid of things that aren't part of it,
So you don't
or
waste your time.
don't need to be
Yeah,
part of it.
you won't waste your time reviewing it then. I agree. I think we should start with the consultant.
And I think you could, you know, if there was some section that you would want, maybe assign it technology, maybe cemeteries, I don't know, just to help you process them all.
I'm happy to participate
Right.
in a
We
section
have
of
the
it.
broadband committee too, which.
Yeah, because there's
Every
that,
committee can, the Marine Resources Committee can get their feedback.
And I think
And there will have to
Kathy,
be public hearings along the way, which could be part of that.
Kathy.
30-minute sessions.
30-minute session.
Well, I-
That was part of the
I-
cemetery.
I think Carly makes, if I could interrupt, I think Carly makes an excellent point. When I started looking at the marine resources, I mean, there's a bunch of people that their livelihood depends on how this town manages the marine resources and things that are gonna be done there. I mean, we've got, I don't know how many of them are in West Bath waters, but we've got, what, 7 or 8 oyster farms on the New Meadows River? You can't just let an amateur sit down and write something glorified about that. It's gotta be done very thoughtfully and carefully with with the economy of West Bath and the people that live in West Bath livelihood in mind. And that's where having somebody that really is more familiar with the comprehensive plan process could help with that. But I would think the Marine Resources Committee would be key to writing or reviewing in detail that section of the report.
I think we should have a consultant do it, but to clean it up, break it into departments like marine resource, like forestry, like technology, whatever the elements that are required for us to have. And then maybe we bring it back and take a look at that before you even start assigning it to anybody.
Well, it sounds like that was a problem, there's no one there to
Right.
guide the process.
But if the consultant can.
Oh, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah. But and I want the consultant to actually break it into segments.
I
This
think-
piece is for marine resources, this piece is for forest, whatever those, the elements that have to be in there.
I think we should let the consultants probably know how to do this job because they've been doing it. And I think we're better off to take their advice. And hear their advice before we set out the plan. Is there a way that we can talk with them?
Yeah, I'll reach out to them. We have 2 consultants assigned, they're planners, Hannah Sisk and Max Johnston. They're both with MCED, and they will assist us through the process if you choose to enter into contract with them. I will reach out to them and get an amended contract before I ask you to sign anything, because I'm not comfortable with what we were given.
So
last
is this will be the same 2 then that do our ordinance review, correct?
Yes.
They'll be a team, okay.
Yes.
And that makes sense because
Yeah, it should be consistent.
And then we'll also have support from the state. You know, there's only 2 people in that department that handle comprehensive planning for the entire state. So he probably has less time to spend with the town, but he said that he would be available anytime by Zoom if we wanted to speak with him.
Okay.
So would the next step on that item be having them come meet with us?
Yeah, I'll have them clean up the contract, have it available for your review, and then schedule a meeting with them.
Okay.
And meanwhile, we can talk with the planning board and see if they're willing to be appointed as members to the committee.
Or a subset of it,
Hmm?
or a subset of the planning board.
Right.
And it might be good to have those people at the meeting with the planning board.
Right.
Because I think the better we understand what you're being
Mhm.
asked to do.
Yeah,
Rather than assuming, because we all know what happens when we assume, so,
Turn into donkeys.
yeah. All right, business item number 3, remote meeting participation policy.
okay. The ability to have Zoom meetings, the way we've been conducting them, like over the winter, expires at the end of this month. So in order to have the option of conducting remote meetings into the future, we need to adopt policies. The draft of a policy is in your packet, and it was taken from the Maine Municipal Association. It's just a generic standard for having the ability to conduct a meeting remotely. The requirement is that participation in person is expected. They don't want towns to just go ahead and have remote meetings because they feel like it. If a member of the board is sick or is traveling, and the board member wants to join remotely, that would be allowed. If one board member joins remotely, then the public needs to have the right to join the meeting remotely. And have access to all of the information that's being discussed at the meeting. if all board members are present in person, then the public does not have the right to join remotely. They would have to attend in person as well. And that's state law.
Kind of silly.
So that's pretty much what the policy covers.
And the alert from Judson Baird
That just describes the requirement.
describes, and the MMA follows the law.
Right.
I wouldn't see any reason why we wouldn't.
I don't think I have a choice.
Yeah, I think you want to have the option,
Yeah.
Yep.
because if we're in the middle of budget season, somebody's sick, they don't want to show up to the meeting,
Well, we have-
you could still join if you want to. You know,
Do we have, do you have that set up to, so the only, I guess my concern is that, let's say one of us gets sick that traditionally isn't scheduled. So then how is the general public granted or notified for their access?
The same way that we notify about meetings.
Yeah, but if all of a sudden I'm not there
Right.
and it becomes a.
Yeah, it's probably, in reality, it would be something that we have a couple of days' notice on, I would think.
Then my illness according. I think we should just be able to let the public chime in regardless, but it's not the law.
Yeah, it's really awkward, but I find this to be really
It
awkward.
doesn't make sense to me on how it's established. If-
My supposition would be that this is the first attempt and that other policies will be refined as people have experience with it. I mean, to try to set a statewide policy that's gonna fit all situations, it won't. So it'll have to be refined as time goes on. But, this works. I mean, even if I called in sick at 5:25, it would not take long to say to the public, it's on Zoom, or send a quick email.
Right, and they would still have the ability to
Attend in
meet in
person.
person too.
Right,
That was my-
Because Kathy and Suzanne would be here in person.
right.
So,
So you have to be able to establish, well, maybe that should be a policy that we have a Zoom meeting set, you know, for each meeting, and then you just open it.
That would be nuts, I think.
Yeah, no, I don't think we could do that.
We don't have the equipment.
We have the equipment.
Well, if you're all present in person, then that would be really awkward and confusing.
Yeah, but 5 minutes before from here, you could not establish a Zoom meeting from where you are right now.
Well, I thought the whole purpose was this as an emergency measure. It's
Yeah,
not
it
supposed
is.
to be the standard.
Right.
And setting it up as the standard, even if it's not the standard,
Right.
might set.
Not needed.
I understand what you're saying, like it should be at the ready.
Well, how do you have it ready, should we, I don't know how that is.
Well, if we're meeting at the town office, it should be pretty easy. We
Right.
can figure it out.
Traditionally. we would
I think
be-
we're gonna have to buy a TV for the meeting room. Would be my guess, so that we can hook it up and have it ready so that we can see people who are zooming in to join us. If that
It's not
happens.
have a
It's
pull down,
probably coming.
Yeah.
like MMA has the pull down screen.
That's an option too.
That with the projector.
Well, I'm with
I just want to comment,
That's how we-
I had an experience during COVID, as we were approaching the budget, and the school board did a budget review by Zoom. And I thought, okay, I'll tune in and just see what they're doing, and wanted to just, I was so admired their tenacity in getting us through this year as successfully as they did. But the way it was done is if you were watching the meeting and them talking, you had to submit a question by email. And I actually tried to submit a comment by email,
Mhm.
and it went into the ether, and they had 3 minutes to see if anybody sent them anything, and they sat there for 3 minutes and it never came up.
Right?
It was very unsatisfactory.
But I think that was set by the Department of Education.
Huh?
That format, I think, was okay with the Department of Education.
Yeah.
Well, they muted me when I tried to speak. That may be intentional, but,
There was no provision where you could speak.
No.
And I could kind of understand that because somebody could get in there and be really
well,
annoying.
you can mute, there's things that, I mean, you have the way, you know, to kind of raise your hand, like
That wasn't a provision that was
Right.
allowed.
and then you can open their mic and close their mic, so someone at the control can temper.
This was totally different. You
They
had
weren't
to,
using a Zoom platform, they were using our
you had to send an email in advance or send it during this little 3-minute
But
period.
that was, I think, protocol from the Department of Education.
Right,
And it was unsatisfactory. I just want to make that comment.
yeah.
Just,
And we're not going to make policy about which platform we're going to use, I presume.
No, I don't think you want to tie yourselves down. This just gives you an option.
I move that we approve the remote meeting participation policy as presented in our packet.
Second?
All in favor?
Business item 4, application for federal and state surplus property. West Bath application to be a donee of surplus property has expired.
Yes. We were notified by the state that we had an expired status, and we would like the option to acquire surplus property in the future.
That like the chairs that we had? We don't want those.
They'll actually, Carly is very fond of the binder supply that they have. at the
we
store.
got a gigantic box of binders for $2, and I just priced them on WB Mason, and WB Mason is selling them for $20 each.
Ooh, look at you.
She said directly into the camera.
So we'll be looking for
As a
buyers.
state employee, having access to that, one of us outfitted her.
Where do you think your selectmen's cars are coming from?
You can get old cruisers. I want the old police car.
Yeah.
Could I
that
make a
TV
motion that we approve that we submit the application to be a donee for federal and state surplus property?
And I guess, how do we make sure that it doesn't expire?
Well, it will
It does.
expire.
It does every year?
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
It has to,
Gotcha.
and you approve it and stuff.
yeah.
I second that. All in favor?
Okay, there's 2 places for Kathy to sign his check.
Okay.
Guys are gonna want your cars.
That's right. Just the pedal cars.
You can all drive the standard.
Oh, I can drive, I learned on this.
I'm gonna say, this name, I thought we got rid of it.
Is this really
You're
personal?
so- she's supposed to retire.
Cars for personal use?
Yes.
One of you can drive your old fire truck.
I'll do that. I haven't sold it yet. I'm down to drive the fire truck. I was volunteer
Okay.
fire.
Town administrators report.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's start with maybe the easy thing. The state is loaning us their radar speed trailer beginning on Monday. Where would you like it to be placed first?
That's a question.
But right here.
On State Road?
Why don't we do the school, some school still in session?
Oh, yeah.
It was very few kids going, and the speed is really picked up on that road, but even with a few kids going to summer school, it's really important to try to slow it down.
many weeks do we get it?
3 weeks.
So we could potentially move things along?
Yeah, school's out July 30th, so.
And is,
Yeah, I think it's 3 weeks.
is this, I mean, how many times have I passed one and not thought to ask the question? So is this just gives the MDOT and the town a picture of how fast people are going at particular times?
Yes.
And it's got the flashing light, like you were this speed.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it flashes.
Yeah, oh, it does.
Yeah.
It shows that I'm really going fast. I
Pretty sure.
gotta slow down.
And then if we find any particular stretch, like at the school or going down the hill on the Mill Bridge, that people are going too fast
Mhm.
for the road, then what happens?
Sheriff.
Yeah.
We ask for patrols?
Notify the sheriff.
So they share the data back with us as to where, how many violations we.
No, I don't think we actually get any data. I think it's just to put people on notice.
We should ask for the data. It may help us
I could
decide
find out how that works.
how we want to put stop signs or something.
Mhm.
I'd like to put in a request for it to go on Berry's Mill Road at the causeway. Those people come roaring down that hill and gun the motors to go up the next hill, and there's no way they're going 40 miles an hour. And the construction trucks that have been going through there in the last year is ridiculous how fast they're going.
Yeah. I was a big fan of having the thing on the Berry's Mill Road. There's any number of places where people are driving too fast.
How about right before you come up Hill by Smalls? You come barreling down that hill and go,
That would probably be another place, but what I worry about is on the causeway is there's
There's
a bunch
no
of
place
coal
to go.
hawkers that park their cars there. They're getting in and out, and there's pedestrians standing there at times during the day, and it doesn't seem to faze anybody. They go down through there. I'll bet they're going 60 miles an hour in a 40-mile zone. I wish the speed limit was 35 along there, but that's, I live there now, so I see it.
Call Bill.
Huh?
Call Bill.
So by the school, it was by the courthouse the last time. So we have a week at the school and a week at the.
we have 3 weeks, and then maybe a week out here.
Okay. That works.
Or they've done it on the,
I don't know.
on the Witch Spring Hill, close to Bar.
Yeah, they
It'd
did
be
that
interesting to know
fairly
what,
recently.
That was
Yeah.
just there.
Yeah.
It was
it
kind
would
of
be interesting to know what the data is on that.
I will say that at the town office, we get the most complaints about the end of Foster's Point Road.
This way?
The far, like the far end of it, where there's that house really close to the road.
Yeah.
But I think that's because there's a lot of summer residents that pick up the pace in the summer. But there's also a lot of pedestrians on Foster's Point Road. Not that there isn't on State Road or Bears Mill Road or any other road.
Perhaps-
That's what I receive comments on.
Perhaps some of Kylie's comments can be passed along to the sheriff's department, and they might sell there for a day or two.
Yeah.
I'd say they're always down plans, so they
Yeah.
do pretty well.
Yeah, they like, that's, yeah, I won't give away their trade secrets. They're out there.
Usually at the cemetery on Berry's Mill too. Yes,
We'll find out.
the hard way.
Okay, Jay Paris is serving as an alternate member of the planning board. He has asked to be appointed as a permanent member, so we have an appointment for him.
Oh, let me move that we appoint Jay Paris to the planning board as a
Second.
regular member.
Second.
All in favor?
Are we still looking for people on the road committee?
Yeah,
Scott said he'd do it.
really?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
That's 2 people.
have him fill out a form.
I'll send
I'll take it home to
As
him.
soon as we get three, we have a committee. You get that third member. Tressa Ray is coming to town in August, and she'll be here on August 17th, which is a Tuesday. She would like to do this sidewalk on Arthur J. Reno Road at that time.
What day is it?
August 17th, it's a Tuesday.
At what time?
She said any time would work.
I need to check the time calendar, I don't want it to interfere with the swim. Morning would probably work best for me.
Yeah, I actually may shoot for early morning as well.
Well, I didn't say early.
Well, I'm not, but like not 11, like before I start work, maybe 8:30.
That's, I'm retired.
I
don't start work till 11.
I would move for like 8 o'clock or 8:30, before my day started, my work day, my other job, that pays the bills.
At 9.
What do you think, Kathy? 9?
Whatever.
Okay, I'm calling it 9 on Tuesday, August 17th.
Thank you.
And I have an update on Walden Renewables. They have high confidence that they'll be able to get a project off the ground. They're still pursuing solutions because the state passed legislation recently concerning net energy billing. So they need to do a little bit of work to make sure that their concerns are addressed before they move forward. But they're confident, they're glad that they're working with the town, so I think that's moving in a very positive direction. So I'll keep you updated as we learn more. They're looking at probably the end of 2022 before they really get things underway.
And is this the contract that Sally's still working on?
Yeah, actually, it's Mark Bauer. That's it.
You got a Portland Trust? Oh, that's correspondence.
Okay, any future agenda items that we want to talk about?
Were you gonna put the dock and waterways on? For Jay? The dock, I had put dock and waterways, Jay's request.
Yeah, actually, Jonathan is gonna be at the meeting on August 5th on a different matter, so maybe that would be a good time to do it.
Yep,
Yeah. If he doesn't get called up.
Right.
there'll be no fires on the 5th,
Okay.
none.
Could you put that out on the computer list?
No fires on
Fire,
the 5th.
Suzanne.
Yes, Suzanne was on the volunteer fire.
I will volunteer, I will take the old truck out. As long as there's no siren though, so you just have to get out of the way.
Have you read the book, Don't Let the Pigeon Drive the Bus? You should look that up. They have it at the library.
Don't let the pigeon drive the bus.
Any other future agenda items? Any
This
other
time.
public comment?
I was going to comment on the old fire truck, anything new there at all?
I don't have an update on
Could you check with the chief?
that. Yes. I can do that.
I have a question also. Well, it comes with our COVID money. Any status on?
No, I filled out a survey this past week. They put out a survey geared toward the smaller communities who don't have the same infrastructure issues as the cities do. Asking what we would like to use the money for. I hope that that will affect some positive change and allow us to use the money toward things that make sense for us. Like climate resilience, where we could correct road issues and shoreline erosion and stuff like that. I think that would be perfect. And that's kind of the direction that I went with the survey questions. I think there's more to come. I think they're actually gonna open up the use of the money to different areas. I'm hoping they do. But they're still suggesting that we pull our money, give the money to the county, let other towns.
Have our money.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to put it that way, but that's what it really sounds like. I've been on a couple of different Zoom meetings where the feds are telling us how we can use our ARPA funds, and it's really,
We have just as many bad roads as everybody else.
we really do.
So I'm thinking no.
We should ask the county how they're gonna share the money with us, their money with us.
Right.
Right.
Well, that brings me to a second part B of my question. The school's money. How much are they getting? And what are they planning on spending it on?
I think it would be good to have an update from Emily at some point.
'Cause I
To
think-
see if they've discussed it.
Because, well, I think the town, we should have some perhaps influence on some of that. For some of the buildings and things that the town is responsible for. You know, where they had 3 classrooms they couldn't use for ventilation during COVID, but we got $12,000 in snow pants
Yeah, but I
instead.
think ventilation is something that, really money can now currently be used for, so it would be good to get.
But I think we should, I think we should maybe at least hear what they're gonna say and maybe provide some input, because I still am a little raw over the $12,000 in snow pants, I'll be honest. Just don't see the purpose behind that.
It was to make sure that all children had sufficient equipment to participate in outdoor educational experiences which were necessary. There are some children who cannot afford snow pants.
I completely understand that, and LLB did not need to be the purveyor of $60 snow pants for every student.
I'm just gonna say, they did the majority of them living outside, no matter how cold it was, they did it.
And I think most of the kids are being, have a pair of snow pants already.
But it should also be noted that school was open 5 days a week, all
Absolutely.
year long, so.
But I just think that, had we opened up a classroom ventilation system,
The trouble is.
They were working on the ventilation.
There are kids that don't have snow pants, and the trouble is with that funding, we can't just single out certain kids to buy towards all of them.
And it
State
means,
rules, federal rules, they don't make sense.
and it means that
I'll personally pay for somebody's snow pants
those
if they don't have it.
snow pants are available again this winter.
And they made a lot of improvements in the ventilation system in the school in the past.
I just think that we should have the opportunity to have input as to where they spend their COVID money as a town. Because they actually roll up to the town, they are not a standalone entity of the town.
They are elected, the school board is its own board, and they're elected officials.
And they have different requirements than the town does.
And they operate under a different set of laws and departments.
They still use a West Bath tax ID number. Just saying.
Any other future agenda items?